All right, guys. Hi, hello. Welcome to our last day before spring break. Woohoo! Very exciting. We've got some notes to take today and then just some reminders. You guys have been working all week on an assignment that is, again, looking at impact of religion. We're going to move on to the next learning objective, which ties directly to religion at this time, because this is the group which is going to bring Islam in much larger numbers to India as a new rival to Hinduism and Buddhism. So we're going to talk a little bit about the early Arabs who make their way into the subcontinent, and then we'll talk about the Mughals. Mughals can be spelt more than one way. I just spell it the same way every time because it's kind of obnoxious to write it both ways, both times, or all the times. So again, just keep that in mind as we go forward. Anything that looks close to Mughal is probably Mughal. So with your notebooks out, ready to go, we're going to take some notes, and that'll be kind of the big thing today. So after the Arabs came into India and took over, basically, again, took control from all of the divided Hindu groups. And remember that during the Guptas, after the Guptas, I apologize, it was a huge breakdown of individual kingdoms, hundreds of them, over the course of, again, a long time. No one really rose above the rest until these outsiders came in. And they brought with them, of course, all kinds of different social and cultural beliefs and ideas. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. When the Arabs started to come into the subcontinent and take control, very quickly there was a divide that started to happen between the Muslims, the Arab Muslims, and then the Indian Hindu population. The Muslims started to become associated with the ruling class, with the highest class in India, whereas the Indian Hindus kind of made up everybody else and they were forced to be less than. The Arabs, as they came into India, never pushed or forced any Indians to convert to Islam. Some did naturally because they wanted to be a part of the upper classes of society. Others did not, they resisted. They did strongly encourage it, of course, like they did when we discussed the Arab Empire last unit. The major reason that they didn't push harder is really because the population in India was much larger than that of the Muslim ruling class. There were way too many Hindus to not try and be tolerant of them. But it did create a relationship between Muslims and Hindus at which is, again, very suspicious of each other, and there's a lot of dislike. I mean, Islam and Hindu couldn't be more different, I would say. In Islam, which is one of the big major monotheistic religions, and then Hinduism, which is polytheistic, that right away makes it impossible for them to get along because Islam puts everything into the idea that Allah is the one and only, where Hindus are like, nah, there's all kinds of different gods and goddesses that are just as important as anyone else. Um, of course, over time, the Islamic ruling class sort of imposed some of their customs onto Hindu society. They didn't support a caste system in the eyes of Islam. All who practice Islam are the same, and then everyone else is less than. So instead of having multiple castes or multiple social levels, it was a little bit, I guess, less complex under the Arab life. So and that's kind of the broad strokes when it comes to major changes in India during this time. Another aspect of change, I suppose, can be looked at in the economy or in the daily life. The system that was created here is a little bit like feudalism. If you think way back into last semester, we talked about feudalism with our medieval time period, but you had a large peasant class who were working the land, and then they would pay the landlord, and the landlord would pay the Arab king. The Shah is what they refer to themselves as. Again, it's kind of this give and take reliance on each other. The rent that those peasants, I apologize, the peasants were paying to the landlord, which was in turn paid to the king, was basically just bankrolling that king's life, the wars, the temples that they created, the mosques that they created. Unfortunately, what ended up happening because of this is that the Hindu majority, all of those Hindu Indians who are being told what to do and how to live their lives by the Muslim ruling class, they're living in intense debt and poverty. This, of course, is not going to guarantee that the population is going to put up with it forever. That's for sure. Also, culturally, of course, we see kind of an interesting mixing of cultures. The Arabs are bringing with them a lot of new traditions, and then it's just building on top of what was already there, a rich cultural tradition of India. Again, architecture, prose, thinking novels and things like that. Seeing the movement away from more natural or simple, again, places of worship to much larger scale and much more intricate things like that in the time of our Arab influence here. So that's it for this. Now we're going to talk about the Mughals. So until 1500, again, India was still divided into a lot of different kingdoms. In the northwest, there was a lot of Muslim kingdoms, and then to the south and the east, there's many more Hindu kingdoms. And it isn't until a dynasty, a family, the Mughal dynasty, from a mountainous region north of the Indus River Valley, so thinking way closer to the Middle Eastern region than not, the Mughals are going to unite all of those, conquer and unite all of those different kingdoms, crossed the Indian subcontinent, and they are going to do that most importantly through a series of really strong leaders. Babur is the first of these, and he is the founder, the first Mughal to rule. He is a descendant of two major leaders of other groups out there, Timur Lenk, which is an Asian group, and then Genghis Khan, who of course is the most famous Mongol that there is. He is going to inherit the part of Timur Lenk's massive empire in northern India, and then he decides that he wants to make a name for himself and create his own empire. So he's going to create this really rapid expansion down south into the rest of India. They have smaller numbers in comparison to the different kingdoms they come up against, but they have much more advanced weapons and they're much more effective in the style that they fight, relying heavily on horses and, again, things like, again, semi-automatic, I suppose, weapons, things that are just a bit more at that moment in time fancy, more technologically advanced. That's the word I'm looking for, overall. So you see that come through, and they just like lay waste to a lot of the older kingdoms that are in their way, basically. As the Mughals go forth, the next leader of the Mughal dynasty is going to be Akbar. Akbar succeeds after Babur's death, and he's only 14 years old. He has a lot of similarities to Osaka in the Mauryan Empire side of things. He's very intelligent. He's industrious. Industrious is hardworking. He's very tolerant, humane. He is going to continue the work of his father and expand the Mughal Empire even further along, seeing this idea here with advanced weaponry. They also, again, are very good at negotiating. So not all of their expansion is through conquest. Some of it is going to happen through negotiation, which of course is an interesting approach when it comes right down to it. Obviously more peaceful, which is impressive, to say the least. When we look back at the time under Akbar, it appeared as if the Mughal Empire had a centralized government, but actually it was more or less a collection of semi-independent states being held together by the emperor himself. So it was a little bit less, I guess, complex than some of the empires that we've seen in India thus far. With this process, we can see here that it really came back to Akbar as a leader himself. And that's one of the big reasons that we see this process work out so well for them. He is Muslim. Of course, again, Mughals are all Muslims. And he, as a very smart and intelligent young man, recognized that tolerance is the only way to be able to rule a population that has a different religion well. He's very welcoming of outside viewpoints, and he often would converse with people about things he didn't know or understand because he just wanted to understand it or wanted to learn more about it. Very prosperous, peaceful, minus the conquering in India overall. It's a time of great progress. There is going to be a new class that develops of local officials. Zamindars is what they're referred to as. Peasants are going to be treated much more fairly. The trade is handled by Muslims for the most part, not Indians. So when it comes to economic growth, Indians are going to miss out on a lot of that. They're going to keep to the lower parts of society, unfortunately, which of course does not, again, sell them on their relationship with the Muslims at this time. We're going to see that this issue between the Hindus and Muslims in India is going to last way beyond this, similar to the suspicion between the Muslims and the Christians from the Crusades time period that we talked briefly about last unit as well. So again, as all of these empires eventually do, the Mughals are going to fall into decline and then, of course, move forward, move again, go beyond. We're going to see next that the next group that comes into India, it's not going to be the Hindus rising up. It's actually the Europeans' turn to come in. But regardless, we're going to see after Akbar dies that things begin to decline. The Akbar's son started as a really strong leader, but it really, again, it took a strange turn because the wife of his son started to like influence him in ways that was not good. The empire grew really big, but it also became much harder to control. And we're going to see that the Mughal Empire is going to start to crack, to divide, to weaken. Under this time period of the Mughals, we're going to see some major and longer lasting shifts going down here. One is the role of women, so another social impact here. So we're looking at Muslim Mughals looked at women to provide advice, especially in politics. Again, they weren't the leaders, but they were advisors, and that's a big impact or a big change that happens. In the Hindu population, though, it actually kind of goes in reverse, where Hindu Indians become much more secluded and pulled out of society. They didn't want them mixing, is really what it comes down to. We're going to see here that architecture and painting is also going to become this really interesting sort of unique approach overall. Again, seeing some mixing of Persian plus some Arab, and then of course the Indian traditions are all going to get sort of mishmashed together underneath the Mughal time period. Probably the most famous and most important example of Mughal architecture is going to be the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal was built to honor Shah Jahan's, which was Akbar's heir, his son, his favorite wife. Again, when we look at this and we talked about this, again, Muslims are again polyamorous, aka they're going to allow for men to have more than one wife. Again, Shah Jahan's favorite wife, when she passed away, he was just absolutely gutted, so very sad and upset about it, that he wanted to build her the most beautiful tomb that had ever existed. So he's going to enlist a very famous Persian architect, and it's going to incorporate a lot of really beautiful, like absolutely beautiful Muslim details into it. Again, the minarets are going to be there. We're going to have the dome. There's going to be white marble. Passages of the Quran are etched into the walls. It is considered to this day one of the wonders of the world, and millions of tourists go every single year to go and see the Taj Mahal in person because it is so beautiful. And so just magnificent overall. And again, before I flip to the next slide, which has a picture of it, I'd like you to just try in your head picture what the Taj Mahal looks like, because you've all seen pictures of it. It is one of the most well-known buildings that exists. So in your brain, what do you see? What does that building look like, without me just telling you right off the bat? Did your mental image look like this? Because it should have. So this is the Taj Mahal. As you can see here, it is absolutely massive. If you look close as you can get, those teeny tiny little white spots are people. So you can see how absolutely massive in scale this is. It's one of the reasons it is considered a wonder of the world. Just off of sheer size, it is incredible to think about how this could have been built overall, and the fact that it stayed in such pristine condition throughout all of this time is really a testament to how beautiful and how well built it is. Again, the Taj Mahal will pop up again later on when we talk about, again, the British coming to India, but we're going to save that for after break. So that's it for notes. You can put your notebooks away. Quick reminders, again, today you've got stuff due. It's our last day before spring break, so we got to kind of get things wrapped up here. One is your Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam worksheet. Again, there's a map and then the table. You got to turnitin.com if you want to get credit for it. I'm also going to be today or tomorrow looking at study aid. You should have at least 15 key terms finished, though we've already covered 18 after today's lecture. So making sure that you're getting that finished. Again, over break, you have no official homework unless you are behind. If you are behind and you have not completed the work that you should have so far, you need to work over break. That is the consequence of pushing things off and not doing work as it is assigned. Again, every Turnitin will be open for you to be able to submit things correctly. Again, it's your responsibility. So please make sure that you are, again, taking time to get that stuff done. Email me with questions. By the time we get back from break, we only have a week left. On the 24th is when our test is going to be. So you're going to want to make sure that you're keeping up with things, that you're getting stuff done, and hopefully you won't have anything to do over break so you can really enjoy your week off. If you have questions, make sure to shoot me an email. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a